It's the frustration that we've had for a very long time with the police and the justice system, because the communications have been broken for a very long time. It's very difficult to get the magistrates' courts to speak to the NPA and the DPP, and obviously now we don't know the details of the case, but obviously there's some communication error between the police in Bethal, which is quite a remote town, and the Constitutional Court.
But it brings to light what the problems are, doesn't it?
Well, the other thing to bear in mind is the police have been knocking down doors and pulling out plants for 70 years.
This is what
they're
they've been
not
doing.
going to stop right now.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're extremely frustrated that all their life's work has just gone out of the window with a unanimous judgment. But we have a Dagga arrest helpline called Join the Queue, and since the day of the judgment, it has been extremely quiet. So this is an isolated incident, we hope, and we are waiting for the gentleman to call Join the Queue so we can help him, because we can't find him, we don't know where he is, and we can't look for everybody that's in trouble with the police.
Absolutely.
So we wait and look with interest, because at the end of the day, if the police carry on doing this, it's actually up to the magistrate to deal with it. And I'm certain today in Bethel, the magistrate is going to throw the whole thing out.
You also have a separate case dubbed the trial of the plant at the High Court in Pretoria. Just take us back to how it came about and what the developments are there.
Okay, so after our arrest in 2010, we sued 7 government departments on charges of enacting unlawful laws. And then our trial ran for 14 days last year, August, but unfortunately we ran out of time. So that trial was postponed at the time, and it still remains postponed. Unfortunately, we don't have any firm news for the public about that trial yet, because we're still re-strategizing with our legal team.
Okay.
So
there'll be developments there.
We still stand very firm on our 4 platforms of the use of cannabis.
Do you think the trial will be affected by Judge Zondo's judgment?
Oh yes, yes. That's why the re-strategizing of our evidence is quite a tricky thing, because we need to work around this historic judgment.
The other thing is to bear in mind, the trial of the plant has to go on, because on our charge sheet it says dealing in drugs, and Judge Zondo didn't mention anything about dealing or trade. So at the moment we've got this...
He was actually very specific about private use and adult use.
And you know, we've worked for 8 years to get decriminalisation. It's a wonderful feeling to know that young South Africans are not going to go to jail anymore for their use of cannabis. So we are looking forward to going back to Pretoria to consolidate what we know and actually get off our charges, because we are still, in the eyes of the law, on a dealing charge, and Myrtle and I have been on bail from the state for 8 years now, R1,000 each. So our story ends the day we walk out of Krugersdorp Magistrate.
What are the financial implications of that, though?
Well, the financial implications are they've had my money for 7 years and I want the interest as well. That's what the implication is. And our story actually ends the day we walk out of Krugersdorp Magistrates Court with R1,000 each in our hand. That's the day this ends.
Oh, wow. So you're on your way to an international conference now. What's going to be your contribution?
Yes, so we have 2 big conferences coming up. Next week is Drug Policy Week in Cape Town, and we are keynote speakers together with some rural farmers from South Africa, Morocco and Colombia, and together with a whole lot of drug policy experts from around the world. Because right now we're sitting somewhere in the middle of law and policy. Because, you know, the courts don't write the details of the new law. So we've got to kind of walk this tightrope right now, because it's very important that the South African cannabis community has a say in what the new laws are going to look like. And then in December we're on our way to Europe to a big cannabis policy conference that is being held by activists in Europe.
It is that big a conversation.
Yes, it is a very big conversation, because around the world we already have some examples like Canada and Uruguay, Portugal and some states in the USA, but South Africa is unique. And we've already had this completely unique judgment. Nowhere in the world has privacy come first. Medicine usually comes first. But in South Africa, I think it's due to our actions and the actions of the cannabis community that we all have human rights. You don't only have human rights when you're sick. So it's very important. We always say nothing about us without us.
How do we separate the conversation about cannabis with the conversation about hard drugs? I know it's two separate conversations.
Yeah.
Last week, Richard Branson posted on Twitter that governments should start saying we're going to stop the use, but talk about the fact that people are using.
Yes.
Well, it's very difficult for South Africa to actually understand that even a heroin user has human rights as well. And for this to end properly, all drugs should be decriminalised.
Jules Myrtle, I think you noted in the previous conversation I had that we had to keep cutting out because there's a breaking story taking place in Westbury now, and I think